Greetings, folks. How's it going? We are here today down in the bunker. I've got some time to kill here, and I'm going to see what's up here. Yep, there we go. Boom. All right, let's make sure this is down low. Yeah, and charging. It's odd that it's saying that I'm not online. Anybody out there? I am just such a spaz. What's going on? Why can't I get this thing to work? All right, well, I'm going to assume that this is going to come online here. And I just got through having some lunch, and I figured I would come down. Oh, there I am. Wonderful. Hey, I've got my computer over here, or my iPad. And, oh, yeah, you can kind of see that. Well, whatever, you might as well see that. Who cares? Big me. Little me. There we go. All right, so today we're going to talk about They Love Each Other. Well, They Love Each Other is one of those fan favorites, I guess. Everybody likes that song, even if it's the fast one. That's a cool version of that too. If you ever get a chance to, go check out some 73s. They're very cool. But by and large, the version that most folks kind of pay attention to, pardon me, is the 5/877 Cornell kind of this kind of thing. Okay, and that puts us in the key of C, oddly enough. We're playing off of the C major scale. We're playing the 5 chord, the 4 chord, and the 1 chord throughout the entire song, okay? So while it may look like we're playing a G blues, going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, we're not really doing that. We're actually playing from the 5 into the 1 during the verse. The merry run around, sailing up and down, looking for a... So we're not going to hear there's no flat 7 in there, right? No, we're going to hear Garcia do these things where he goes... That's all out of C major, actually. So I've got a loop here. Let's see if we can get it. So if we're going to go... I'm not sure whether or not that's crapping out the microphone. I'm got it cranked up pretty loud, actually. Just having some fun with it. But what a lot of people think is that they're playing over a C7 chord when they go to that C. It's not. It's a C natural, like a straight, pure C major chord, where we're going to be able to access those. Okay. And the question I saw popped up said Mixolydian. And while technically we're allowed to access the flat 7 over top of the G sound, it's, in my opinion, it's best viewed as our old friend, the major pentatonic flat 3, and utilize the blinker or the flat 7 only at the end. Kind of like you're playing your trump card at the very end of like dominoes, like boom, all right? So it's kind of a checkmate move over the G chord. So if we start out by getting the melody squared away, we'll see that we're looking at G. Going from the 5 to the 6th relative to our G chord. So that's the C major. There's our blinker, okay? So watch me bring that F note. We're going to keep the F out of the soup right until the end, right before we go to the C chord, okay? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. We have yet to really channel any of the cool, groovy Enclosure shit that Garcia came to utilize this as a platform for the. Okay, but we will definitely get to that. All right. At first, I want you to have a better understanding of what the fundamentals of its construction are, okay? Yes, technically speaking, this is a 5 chord, which entitles you to play the G. It won't be a wrong note. It's just not the most effective use of that tool. So sure, can you grab your screwdriver and start driving nails with the butt end of it? Absolutely. But that's not really the best tool for that job. The better tool for this part of the tune, all right, developing the G chord, is to utilize our friend, the major pentatonic flat 3. So again, we come back to our idea of having a fungible pile of a vocabulary that needs to exist for playing over major chords, while at the same time addressing the melody, all right? So once we get up to that C chord, we can play any ideas that we own around C major, and in particular, any ones that emphasize the major 7th and the 6th and kind of push the 4 away. Now, what's the 4 over the C chord? That F note again, okay? So we want to kind of treat this F, kind of hold it back, okay, for the chorus when we actually go to an F chord, and at the very end of our G line where we go, okay? But even still, we don't really need to employ the 4 over the C chord. We don't want to have a raised 4 either, but we want to hear the C chord sounding more like this. More like a major pentatonic with a major 7. Okay, and that can be. Ooh, something sounds a little out to lunch. Okay, so we're going to want that kind of thing going on over the C. Or we can stick with our old friend, major pentatonic flat 3. So let's see, I'll do G verses and C verse, the G and the C, utilizing both the major pentatonic flat 3 sound, so you can get a feel for it. It's going to have more of a bluesy sound to it because it's got that flat 3. Okay, 1, 2, 1. Once again, that's the sound of parallel major pentatonic flat 3, okay? And then over top of the F chord, you guessed it, F major pentatonic flat 3. Over the top of the C. And then again, G. All right, if that lick works over a chord, then you know, okay, that your 4 basic licks that I talk about all the time, that I use as kind of the foundational building blocks for a lot of what I'm doing. It's not like, oh, with this one simple study, you can learn how to play like Jerry Garcia in 4 easy steps. It's not like that at all. But I did notice that at the core of most of my playing that stems out of that bluegrass dirty third kind of sound, that, there's maybe 4 or 5 of these ideas that are present in all of them. They're not fully developed or in their definitive original state. Sometimes they morph and kind of, there's a bend or a duration can be altered. It's not like I'm going, yeah, that's a Lester flat G run. But if I go, or right, I'm kind of thinking about those kind of bluegrass sounds, but you had a little echo, a little too much reverb, a little bit of overdrive, and put it over a Grateful Dead song, and lo and behold, it sure does sound like our friend Jerome. So let's try thinking about changing up the mix, right? Now I played the major pentatonic flat 3 over top of the G, and then I did the same strategy up here over the 4 chord, or right here over the 4 chord, right? It doesn't have to, we don't have to go, that's right, right? Okay, that can exist really well. Hey, you're not late. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are, Hayes. It's great to see you. So that idea, right, of playing the parallel pentatonic flat 3 thing, okay, that's cool. Let's hear what it sounds like when I do the melody and then break to that kind of that's like the major scale minus the fourth. I don't want to hear that F over the C chord. It doesn't sound pleasant to me. Okay, even when I did, you saw me do that little enclosure. I didn't go when I do those thirds, right? I skipped over the four. I hit the four there. I didn't like it though. So 5 notes, flat 3, and major 7. Pretty tasty. 1, 2, 3. So that to me sounds closer to the tonalities that I hear on my favorite Garcia stuff from that late 70s period, right? Again, not really channeling that earlier, just out of the primordial ooze of the 60s Garcia, right? That's typically where I lay. I like that. Like, I just lost my ugly duck feathers, and now all of a sudden I'm finally a swan version of Garcia that emerges around 72, 73. Right? That's where he would be going like. More like quoting the melody with that aggressive little slide that he did. All right? That's a little different than this kind of. Right? That kind of. He's kind of got a little shimmy in his hips. It sounds very, very delicate. It's not about the boogie. It's more about like. It's like a tango or something, It's definitely got a different type of swagger to it. All right, and I like them both. Don't get me wrong. It's just, hey, I think of this song as a good platform to show some of these other sounds. Now, before we get into the Enclosures stuff, okay, which I think of as kind of the crown jewel of this tune and what you can do with it, let's talk about an idea I called the X lick. All right, and if we think about that last section, funny that when Alex or ALXX mentioned here that we would be playing G Mixolydian, and I said, not so fast, kind of pump the brakes on that idea. Think about it more like, you're playing the Mixolydian, but you're not playing the 7th note every time, the 7th degree all the time. You're going to hold that back and utilize it at this ending of the phrase so as to kind of maximize its power to convert to the 4 chord. Okay, well, not the 4 chord, the C chord, which is actually, we're going from 5 to 1, not 1 to 4, pardon me. All right. So the idea of this X lick is seen here, best seen here, is that if we form a line going across from the B string, the G string, and the D string, effectively going upwards like that, especially more visible here because the frets get closer so that the angle of the X comes up more rather than being flattened out like down here. See this line right here? We're kind of diagonal in this direction. If we invert that, which would make the middle finger stay right where it was, we're going to get some other cool sounds this way. So if we combine those two shapes, okay, we're going to have the combined notes of the triad, G, B, and D over the D chord. Over the G chord. And when we go like this, we're going to hear the flat 7, the 3rd, and the 6th. Okay, and that creates a 13th sound. That's the sound. Okay, so Garcia's hearing. On our way to the C chord. Now watch, you're gonna see me do little moves like this. So I'm going chromatically along the B, then diagonally across the X, and then back chromatically, and then up the X, and then maybe up the. So we could go. And we're gonna do that kind of just literally a geometric idea. Okay. To play into our C chord, okay? Hang tight, because this is pretty killer, okay? Let's say we're taking it up here. Okay, pretty fun. Okay, so that's the X lick. Or goes this way, this way, this way, that way. Take your pick, it doesn't matter. Yes, I've been talking about the 73 versions of They Love Each Other. So yeah, I've been talking about that quite a bit. But the versions of the Dokken mentions the 73 version as well. The point is, you can tell that there are issues with that song because I think there's a bridge in there that they omitted eventually. And truth be told, I think that was a powerful choice. I think that was a meaningful omission. The song improved, in my opinion, without that content. And while I love the tempo and the kind of the boogie of the original, it also is too tethered to their version of Second That Emotion that they had been playing for many years. The maybe you wanna give me kisses sweet. So I think that was one of the reasons why Garcia decided to kind of hip himself towards that kind of reggae, like almost like a reggae thing, real laid back. And we'll talk about some of the rhythm ideas that are available to you that are present from the recorded version, which has a pretty cool rhythmic idea that you don't hear all the time, with this implying the sixth. There's like a little I don't know why that. Like that in it, and you'll see it. We'll talk about that a little bit. It's in the loop. So yes, Dokken, I have listened to the 73 They Love Each Other, and I happen to appreciate elements of it, but let's be honest, that is it in its adolescence. And while it may have been enjoyable occasionally, the version that the song, the way the song has largely been rendered by the Grateful Dead and Dead and Company is done at this pacing. The kind of more the. Get off that quack X lick, okay? Very, very cool song, okay? So practicing playing over that form and implying kind of a call and response between the melody over the G chord and the going off road and kind of enveloping the C major sound in a freestyle kind of improvised way, right? So quoting the melody over the G's. All right, play into the C, and now we've got. Agreed, man. Oh, Dockin chimes back in. Good to see you, buddy. But I just want to chime in and say I appreciate me a lot. Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate you too. I've given you a ton of different perspectives on this music, and I just want to say I've soaked up a lot from me and Jerry. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously he's the star of the show. It's easy to talk about somebody that you appreciate and share your perspective on them. I mean, when it boils down to it, like this is just me talking about the things that I like to talk about. It's not that unpleasant. So while I appreciate your appreciation, I feel this way naturally. So it's kind of interesting that I'm sitting here like talking into. It's definitely postmodern. Like it doesn't feel right to talk to a phone. For an old fart like myself, I kind of feel like, look, honey, I'm doing it. Like it's kind of a weird feeling to be connected to people that aren't in my house who I have never met and probably won't ever meet. You play in a local dead JGB tribute band in Beaufort, Georgia, and to hear another side from another head is way cool. I agree. You know, it is nice for us to be able to form a kind of a lattice and kind of interconnect the capillaries, so to speak, between all of our hive mind kind of thing. So I welcome, I don't like deliberately contestual people. Like I don't need somebody to be like challenging me for challenge's sake, but if they think I'm reading it wrong, I'm always interested in that. You're very welcome, Robert. Good to see you here. Oh, goodness. Best instructor on the Intergoogle. You'll be in, yeah, well, I'll be playing in March. I'm playing down at the Bitter End on March 25th. If you're in town, I'll be there. So you can come see Knock 'em Dead play if you want. We'll probably play this song. So look, one of the things that everybody needs to work on, obviously, is accenting and using the dynamic range of the sound. Okay, so what is that Garcia sound? It's this kind of like, depending on where the volume knob is, you have access to kind of a little painful, like over bright, and a little gritchy, like whoa. But if we play quietly, it has a very pleasant sound, okay? That's the week. Okay, wonderful. Well, it's Tuesday night, and we go on, I think, at 8:30 or 9. And we're there till midnight, I think. All right. So what you need to do is get your right hand aware of the fact that not only is it triggering the note with the left hand, it's also in charge of the distortion amount that you have on tap. If I play quietly, or right, whoops. If I dig in, I'm gonna have more grind and a little bit more intensity. So I view it kind of like a good singing voice where you have like I'm singing, and then when I lean into it, it kind of gets a little grindy, but I don't want to be there too much. Otherwise, it gets to be a little too like, yeah, I'm singing like that all the time. And it's like, easy, partner, just take it down a notch. You could do that on one or two notes and be more effective than if you do that parlor trick all night long. So don't shout at me, sing, and when you need to lean in to give something emphasis, that's your way of adding it in boldface effectively, is by bringing in a little bit of grind out of your throat or out of your right hand. The middle pickup, kind of key for this sound in my opinion. Doesn't quite translate if I'm on the neck. Now the notes and the tone sounds reminiscent of like 72 era Jerry, who he loved that. All right, so you can make beautiful sounding like the that very nice smooth sound, right? But really the sound that we're usually after is the one that's kind of the Goldilocks tone between the all creamy on the neck and all the way snarky in the bridge, right? So right in the middle, just right, okay? Lean into it, you get the clarity and presence to cut through the mix. If you back off, it can get kind of a thick, mid-range, clucky kind of. Especially if you come up on the neck and maybe use a little bit of the flesh underneath your finger. Or with the top of your thumb. All right, he loved that. Right, so you might get that out of the bridge pickup more, okay? So I love Strat configured guitars for Garcia, but I'll also use a humbucker from time to time, and it sounds nice and thick. All right, because he did do that in some of my favorite eras, the 70 in particular. Okay, so just so you know, it's not squeaky clean. It's not squeaky clean. Like his amp is up to like 7 or 8. It's breaking up if he leans into it all the way. And if he backs down, he gets clean sounds. So you can do that with your volume knob if you like, or you can learn to kind of control how much throttle you're giving the gain knob. You're not controlling tempo with volume. Don't think those two things are ganged together. That's the problem with most drummers. You ask them, hey, can you play it quieter? And they play it quieter and slower. Bad drummer. Right? So same with your right hand. You want to make sure that it can control tempo regardless of volume needs. So practicing things that you play all the time, if you're practicing going, right, you want to make sure you can do it loud like that, and kind of gives a lot more of the pick texture, kind of, it has like a tap dancing kind of that. It brings the listener in. Like when if you heard, like in a Looks Like Rain kind of moment where it sounds all tender and pleading, that's how you get it. So a little too loud, a little too much drive for you to lean in all the way with your right hand, and you just tickle that. Just give it a little. And all of a sudden it kind of compresses the dynamic range down a little bit, and you can hear all the little nuances. So practice some of that. It's very, very helpful. Okay, now let's keep going back to They Love Each Other. Okay, so at this point we've done everything we need to do other than the enclosures over top of the verse progression. We'll talk about the chorus part. The Lord, You Can See It's True. That's pretty simple, that part. Okay, But let's talk about this enclosure idea. What's an enclosure? An enclosure is if we take target tones and we surround them by other sounds. So technically speaking, if we're interested in this G note and we play a note above it, any note above it, and any note below it, we have literally enclosed it. Now, as long as the distance between the target note and the system that exists in terms of that device, that target note, above tone, and below tone, stays constant, okay, throughout the play, we will create a systematic approach to that, to a line. So we could change the parameters of that, but generally speaking, we want to use the same enclosure concept throughout a triad. And then the straight ahead approach here is taking the G triad. He's taking the G, the D, the G again, and the B. And then finally the, okay, and the enclosure that Garcia is accessing here is pretty common and super useful, okay? And it doesn't have too many kinky notes in it. Now, there's some jazz guys that, can do 4 and 5 notes, all right, 3 notes on the front, then 2 notes behind, and then the actual note that we're interested in. Garcia is taking a far more rudimentary approach to this, but it really does benefit the sound, and it sounds great. So it's not really a criticism, it's just like, it is true, though, that there are more complex enclosures than this. So if we're going to target let's say this D note here, in the key of G, we're going to be using 1 scale tone above it and 1 chromatic tone beneath it. So here's our D. So D sharp is 1 beneath it, right? I'm going to look down on my neck and I'm going to see a C sharp 1 fret behind. That's the behind note. And in the key of G, the scale goes, I'm going to take the E note and put it around. So E note in front, C sharp in back, D note, target note. And we're going to go front, back, target. Okay, so that's the D note. So if we did that over the G note, we would hear. Okay, so now we've just outlined a G, a D, and an E with this whole, well, it's not a whole step, it's diatonically 1 degree up the major scale in front, chromatically 1 step behind. Okay, now the thing about the diatonic scale is there's a half step between the 3rd and 4th degrees of the scale. So when we get to the 3rd, you'll notice that we actually go to 1 diatonic note above, that's the 4, and then a chromatic note behind, and then into the actual target note, the 3rd of our G chord, this B note. So these 3 are in fact comporting with the system of chromatic behind, target note, and diatonically 1 scale tone ahead. It's just that this scale tone happens to organically be a half step. And so it creates a very interesting little sound when we hear. And this is starting to sound all I'm doing is visualizing, okay, that G chord like that. And I'm going to go 1 scale tone above, 1 chromatic behind, target note. And all I'm doing is thinking, I'm going to put my middle finger on the target note again. Now don't forget, when we get to the 3rd, the 4th is actually coincidentally chromatically connected. And then we would be able to come up here and grab. So when we stack that up over top of this G major chord, we're going to get this. We're going to get. I'm not sure if anybody's followed that. Did I deliver that clearly and cleanly, or you probably already knew it? All right, so now here's where the master really kind of shows his creativity is, I'm going ba da do ba ba dee do ba ba dee do da 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. That in and of itself is what I would think of as an elementary application of what's going on. If we look to the kind of the pinnacle of Garcia's use of this, it's definitely that 5/8 77 rendering. It's all good, thanks. So if we look at how he does this, he goes, right? Right, he's displacing it over the bar. He's not going ba dee do ba bo dee bo da bo dee do da bo dee do da. He goes ba dee ba do beep ba do he ba hoo ba. No, like he's really kind of makes it feel like it could collapse at any second. Then he couples that with that X lick idea, which I don't bother learning the exact thing. I just kind of understand what's going on, and he's doing that vibe, right? So when you see, to make the change from the G into the C chord, that was a pleasant delivery of that, in my opinion. We used two concepts that we've talked about today: the enclosure idea with some rhythmic displacement, right? That's that X lick. Okay, so if we hear that, we can do that. I'll do the melody into the normal one, and then I'll do the enclosure into the X lick, and then into the chorus. So we'll see how that works. All right, so super fun song to play. Thank goodness for its chilled tempo, because trying to break out some of those ideas at more an accelerated vibe, that could be kind of complex. I think that could be a little much, but with the kind of cool, easy groove, nice and easy to find your way around in there, I think. All right, if you can't, slow it down even more. All right, or don't bother making the changes. Just play the sound over top of that G chord. Go da do 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 do, and then try it again. So you could take that idea and not displace it. That would be okay, so that, or you can play it in other octaves, and those fingerings will lead to so super reminiscent of Garcia, but not a direct note for note ripoff. So it kind of fulfills both my desire to sound like the guy, but also pay tribute to the concept of being your own player, and I'm still utilizing the voicing of the guy. It's still like I'm doing a Christopher Walken impression. It's just I'm not saying lines from a movie he was in, right? That That's the difference, right? Because I'm not sitting there quoting something. I'm referencing that energy, that idea, and that is just far enough removed that people say, "Oh, that could have been the night after or the night before the version of that sound that I'm used to hearing because I've listened to what happened on 5877 100,000 times," which I did. I mean, I cannot tell you how many sheets of acid were consumed to that recording. Now, I did not even try to learn it really until I was a much older guy. I wasn't really interested in playing Note for Note Garcia as a kid when I was utilizing that music for recreation. But it got in there somehow, and so it's not so hard for me to kind of be the sorcerer's apprentice and bring it out of the cauldron. It's fun. I love doing this stuff. So, all right, so let's take a look at that again for the slower pairs of eyes out here. There we are doing that enclosure. Okay, that's the same one I talked about here, just down an octave. Okay, but what does he do? He goes, see how he kind of took the idea instead of, he goes, ba ba bit ba Now, learning to play it like that would be cool too without the slide, but you can hear the slide. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's talk about the chorus, okay? F, the 4 chord, which we will not be playing like some Lydian monster. There's no reason to think about it like that. Just think about it like F major pentatonic flat 3. Again, into F, C major pentatonic flat 3. And then into G major pentatonic flat 3. Do not really consider it too much. Don't overthink it, okay? In fact, you can find those chords right here. So it's literally just 3 times through that. And at the very end of the G chord, you can still do that. Thinking about the melody. Okay, so maybe you quote the melody. Lord, you can see that it's true. And then do a little fill, right? And that would be a... All right. So that's pretty much all there is to talk about with respect to the tune from a soloing perspective. Major pentatonic flat 3 is your friend over all of these chords, and it is a dynamite vehicle to learn how to actually access that sound. That I'll keep talking about it. You're going to want to reach through the phone and strangle me if I say major pentatonic flat 3 one more time. Boy, oh boy, it gets tiresome talking about it, but the truth is, it's the thing that you've been missing that's staring you right in the face over and over and over again, that's at the core of all this sound, is that you're seeing me do it all the time, going. See how I'm coming down to the sixth? That sound. All right, we're going to be accessing that sound so often. Again, flat 3 of the chord that you're playing over. Absolutely, Moss. That's Hayes. Is Hayes your given name, or is this like a handle, like that you smoke a lot of purple haze and you're slow moving, so you're covered in moss, or is that actually your name? And am I mispronouncing it? Am I being disrespectful? I don't mean to, because it's one of the cooler handles I see on the channel all the time. So one way or the other, certainly cooler than Jacksnax for guitar, but whatever, I'm not really that clever. Nobody ever accused me of being smart. Ah, I see. The family name, Hazlitt. Right, but is Hazlitt a family name? Like for me, my given name is William John Devine III. Where's my monocle? Where's my monocle? Oh, but you can thank my Irish parents for not being creative, and so they came up with everything else. That's cool, man. That's a hip name. Anyway, they gave me that big handle and then started calling me Jack because there's 3 of us around. All right, so I don't think I've left any stones unturned particularly. If you're looking at those licks, right, they can be there or right. So we can invert and mess around with those things, and working that little kick into your lines. If you're sitting there going like. It's bluegrass mostly. That stuff that. It's all bluegrass. So much of that stuff translates very, very nicely to the Grateful Dead's catalog. And I encourage anybody who is unfamiliar with that sound to explore, any of my lessons that talk about it, which there aren't too many that put a bow on it. But if you want, I'll show you, I use the Lester Flat G run, the backwards version of that. So that's. Hit the 3rd there, which is a bit of a modification based on this fingering. When I play it going this way, I'll typically do that 5 6 5 1 instead of 5 6 3 1. But it's nice to have some variables, okay? And if we're playing it backwards, you want to have alternative ways of playing it so that you're not beholden to playing the lick always off of this finger. This is off the middle finger. So I could also go or okay, so those are your Leicester flat G runs going backwards and front. Then you want to learn how to do Charlie Parker runs again. That would be right or up. So that's okay, or flat 3. Okay, so up and down, Parker Enclosure, that's a killer. And then you've got this kind of New Orleans, use of the flat 3 and the 6. Any of those variables, right? So we're coming up from flat 3 into 3, and then flat 3, 3, root 6, 5, root. Okay, or plan B, pull back from flat 3 into 2. Okay, so okay, major pentatonic, flat 3, mama's little baby loves shortening. Mama's little baby loves crack cocaine. Okay, so it's kind of this hopped up country, bluegrass kind of thing that's at the bass line for most of Garcia's stuff. And then from that perch, he'll grab relative to the chord that he's playing over, he'll grab the occasional modally significant note. The thing to bear in mind is the major pentatonic is playable regardless of mode. Leicester, as in Mo, Lester. Lester Flatt was the guitar player who played in the Bluegrass Boys with Bill Monroe, if I'm mistaken. And he invented that. That you hear at the end of traditional country songs. And this becomes basically the foundational lick for bluegrass. Certainly one of the first licks you're going to learn in bluegrass, right? That or... Okay, and what are we doing there? We're hearing that all over the place, or okay. So those licks right there, expanded, contracted, crossbred. Okay, you turn them into platypus. You take the half of one and the other half of the other and make a new critter. Invert one, play the other forward, expand the duration. Don't go, but go. Right, and all of a sudden we played over top of that G chord using all that kind of sound. Now, let's say we're playing in a setting that requires that we address notes that are outside of the grasp of the pentatonic scale, the major pentatonic. Those would be the flat 7 or the major 7, or the 4 or the raised 4, something like that, And if that is the case, that those notes are kind of helpful to your agenda as a soloist in terms of creating the melody that you're after or the sound, right? It'd be pretty hard not to, if you were playing over top of... It would be pretty hard to not access the Lydian sound, because that chord progression utilizes the Lydian chord change. That F chord is going back and forth between the telltale signs of Lydian. The raised 4 back to 5, 5, raised 4, 5. And major 7 over top of it. There's only one mode that has a major 7 and a sharp 4. That's major, right? I don't know what, maybe in some weird world there's a minor one that has those notes, but I don't know I don't know my harmonic minor modes. Okay, let's get that chord ringing true. All right, so the idea of grabbing the other notes that are there from a pentatonic perch, there's our F. All we would have to do is go, and then we just grab that B note, okay? The flat 3 still follows. It works, so okay. But you may or may not like the sound of bringing that country fried. But it sounds pretty good. Like if we were playing, what's a good, okay, like if we were playing Sitting in Limbo. That has a 4 chord that's Lydian, right? So if we're doing, see, that's an F. We would want to. Sounds nice, as opposed to going. We wouldn't want that note. So over the F chord in Sitting in Limbo, it's F Lydian. Okay, so major pentatonic, flat 3, plus a couple of other notes. That's all we're missing, right? It's a 5-note scale, and we're using it instead of being specific with a 7-note scale. So if you want to be a 7-note scale, just take that 5 notes and figure out the 2 that are missing and kind of just add it in there lightly. You don't have to rely too heavily on your major scale. The problem with the major scale is you start sitting there going, pretty soon you're doing nothing but descending 4s or descending 3s, like thirds. All right, there's nothing wrong with learning those tropes, but you don't want to rely too much on them, is all I'm saying. I think you come at it from a much more vocal and chord tone based approach if you base what I call pentatonic plus rather than major scale minus, right? I want you to think about it like learning the concentrate on the cake, not the frosting. Those extra 2 notes, that's the frosting. And you can get by with even just one of those 2 notes can be highly effective. As we saw today, I talked about over top of that C chord, it's a 1 chord, remember? The C chord, going back, so even though we're going, right, that's the first chord we're playing, but it's not the 1 chord. The song is out of the key of C, it's just we're starting on the 5th chord, okay? All right, we still, there's no key of G mixolydian. There's the key of C, but if you want to think about it like what do I play over that? Sure, you could say you're playing G mixo, but you're going to hold the 7th degree in reserve until it's time to go to the back to the 1 chord. That's the way I would use language to specifically describe what's happening. I wouldn't correct anybody who said, "Oh, it's out of G mixo." Okay, kinda. If that's how you want to define it, that's cool. I'm not gonna give you a hard time. But my little pedantic brain gets a little, I kind of want to be more specific about it. All right, because there is a point to it. And when we get up to that C chord, I like to play C major pentatonic flat 3, add major 7, all right, and that's it. So I basically am playing. skip the 4. I do. Not. I don't really like the 3rd, 4th. That was a 4th. That sounded pretty good up there. All right. Oddly enough, the guitar has, my ear has more tolerance for kind of outside sounds the higher up they go, and the lower they go, consequently, the more specific. I'm like, no. All right. So, So Hayes, thank you for participating so much today. That was really helpful, actually, in furthering the conversation. And what time is it here? 1:06. Do I have anybody at 1? I don't think I do. Things have really, they slow down around the holidays and then they pick up again. Everybody has like a holiday schedule and then they can't do stuff. Yeah, I don't have anything until 3. So, by the way, Dave, if you're out there, David Dersh, yeah, I'll see you at 4. All right. There we go. Let's get back to here. Oh, there we go. So I guess that's it for today. If folks are happy with what's happening, I'll keep doing this stuff. It's funny. It doesn't hurt me to come down here and do what I was doing earlier in the day with a student or by myself. I made this lesson last night up for a student that I was going to be meeting with. So it's like, all right, let's do this in advance so that there's something fun for us to work on, because it's been a while. So I was like, all right. So I had a couple of students actually enjoy this loop today, and now even more. So if the 10 of you that are out there still watching, I want to thank you very much for joining me today on Office Hours. And if you can think of any subjects that you'd like to discuss, please drop me a line. You reach out to me at jack_divine@hotmail.com. Or you can just do it here on this thing. Any comments you make on any of my lessons, I get a prompt via YouTube. So if you want to be like, Jack, you're an asshole, there's a good enough chance for you to do that. Or if you want to tell me, dude, you rule, that I definitely will get it quickly and will respond. And we can talk about something that you are finding challenging rather than something that, I don't mean to spoon feed anybody or tell them, hey, you should really know about this enclosure thing. But boy, they sure are kind of fun. I use them all the time in like Beat It On Down the Line or Promised Land or something like that, to add a little extra spice. I know that Jerry was fond of doing that with the more traditional songs. He would bust out something that was a bit of a genre breaker, like, it's a bit of a, sorry, I have a little heartburn. He would do these things where he would break out that kind of tonality, and kind of disorient people for a second, and then hit them with some more. All right, signing off from the crypt. I'll see you guys tomorrow or the next day. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna try to, maybe I'll make it, try to make it more regularly, but I can't. I'm old, I don't eat enough fiber, and therefore, that's right, I'm not regular anymore. All right, take care.